guys, it's Anish again from Agile TV, Agile 2011 conference, Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm honored to be here with Jeff Patton.
I'm honored to be here too. How you doing?
I'm honored. Why am I so honored? Well, just to give you a little bit of story and get a feel for what this conference really is about. About 4 months ago, working on a really large project. It's a very big project for a large client. We had so many user stories, and I couldn't find a way to manage those user stories as the lead BA. And somebody mentioned something about story mapping, so I went online, did some research, came across the website. There was some detailed information about how to create story maps, and I went about for the first time creating story maps around the user stories, which made it easier to communicate with all the various teams across the companies about how to, what stories we were going to work on, and slicing and other stuff. And then today, whilst at the Agile 2011 conference, one of the workshops was about user story mapping, and I thought, okay, let me go and actually check this out, and went there, was given some great content, great information, and then when I checked out the website that the speaker was talking about, guess what? It was exactly the same website where I got that information from, where I was able to create my first user story maps. But before I can get it, so you can feel the excitement, that's why I feel so honored. But before we go on, tell us a little bit about yourself.
We're at an Agile conference. I've been out of the Agile space for a long time, and I've been in software development for getting close to 20 years now, and I'm oldish, and was doing something else a little bit before, and I stumbled. I went to college to commercial art, and it's too much work, and you don't get paid very much. And computer science was easy, and anybody who writes software and knows a little bit about art is automatically the UI guy. And so during the 90s, I did a fair bit of software development. And I did a lot of watched the way it looked, and because I could talk to people, I ended up being the customer-facing UI guy. So I got out in front of people a lot, and it was great. I was able to be a bit of a jack of all trades. And then accidentally, in a weird backhanded way, in 2000, I was sort of searching. I get very passionate about making. I like making things. I like making stuff that people use. I wanted to be better at it, and I fell into a new company that was doing this new extreme programming thing in 2000, and they were using these story things, and the term Agile hadn't been coined yet. So I kind of got in on. I started with this company doing XP stuff, and they hired Ken Beck to come in and teach the team, and hired a bunch of other super smart people. And man, just dumb luck. I got in on the ground floor of this thing. So as long as there's been this Agile thing, the term Agile was coined in 2001, I've just always been there. So what's to tell? I've worked at a few different, worked as a product manager, worked as a lead engineer, done most roles, spent a long time with a company called ThoughtWorks, and right now I spend a lot of time working with a variety of different companies, doing stuff I really like, and right now that's helping other people build really good products or things that they like to build.
Okay, so that's great, and you know what, you're a veteran, and like I said, I've just seen the way that you've been received here by many people, and just to be, as we were just doing this interview, you had somebody come up and say, great workshop, so you're obviously creating great value, and we appreciate that. So user story mapping, what is it for, and why should people consider using it?
The purpose of story mapping for me is stories by themselves have lots of different purposes. That's the cool thing about them. Stories at their outset are you might write them down to make sense of what the product is going to be, and then I might shuffle them around to prioritize them. I might move them in an order to talk about the flow of use. I might break big ones down into small ones to talk about certain aspects. I might prioritize them in the order that I'm going to build them. I might prioritize them in the their importance from the customer's perspective or user's perspective. And the story map is just a simple structure to help me start to see how big things break down into little things, make sense of it from a user's perspective, and make sense of it from how am I going to build it perspective.
Okay.
Simple shape, left to right is the flow of use, top to bottom is a decomposition of break things down to build.
Okay. So I noticed that you was talking about the 3 C's, which are 5 C's for yourself. And one of the things, obviously, we've got the card, we've got the conversation, and then the
construction and consequences.
What is acceptance? Confirmation. That's it. So you got the card, conversation, confirmation, construction.
God, I had to make them start with C. So
of course, it worked.
So that I can find anything else a little bit of a force, but. The real thing that's going on there is, if we're here's a small tidbit about everybody refers to stories as user stories.
Okay.
These days, so many people are adopting agile by way of coming through Scrum.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. A lot of newer people don't know that the story thing, their stories came out of extreme programming process. And a lot of people learn about user stories by way of how Mike Cohn has a super fabulous writer, explains things really well, and he's got a great book called User Stories Applied. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
But they weren't originally called user stories, they were called stories. And the real reason they were called stories is not because they were about what users did with the software. It was, they were called that because we were supposed to write something down, anything down, and if you wanted something and I was going to help you build it, I want to hear you tell me a story.
Okay.
So they're called stories because they were meant for you to tell me.
Okay.
And we've sort of lost that. And I hear constantly, how do I write good user stories?
Yes.
Well, it's a little bit... how do you, I'm trying to think of something pithy to say, is how do you watch good radio?
Okay.
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to speak them, you tell them, you talk, and what you write down is that. I lost the plot. So you're supposed to talk about them, and it's from that you learn what we should build. And then this is an agile process. Once you build them, or once you build some software, then the next step is to look at that and see if that's actually what you want. So there's this idea that we can't understand each other by exchanging documents, so we should tell a story. Okay. And we can't know if we built the right thing until we really see it and respond to it.
Okay.
So the 2 primary mistakes that people make in agile development or working with stories is they revert back to what didn't work before, which was to write good stories. If whatever requirements process they had wasn't working before, and they've heard this agile stuff, and agile says use stories, they're going to use stories, and so they try and figure out how to write good stories.
Yeah.
The point was the writing was the problem, not the format. And then we sort of forget that once you build it, there's going to be change.
Okay.
And you see agile projects that fail, you see a lot of people worried about writing good stories, and you see a lot of people getting perplexed that once they build software and look at it, it needs to change. That's been the whole point all along. You're not supposed to write them, and the software changes.
Cool. So the key here, what I'm getting from that is the key here is not really what you're writing down, but it's more the conversation that you're going to have. And the acceptance criteria that you're actually capturing is a confirmation of what you've discussed.
That's right. If there's acceptance criteria on a story, it should mean there has been a discussion.
Right.
And one of the failure modes of Agile sometimes is a developer saying, well, I'm not going to talk to you about that story until you've written the acceptance criteria.
Yeah.
Exactly backwards.
Okay.
That's of course everything everyone's opinion, and that's fine.
Of course. No, that's great. I mean, to me, that's a great learning curve. That's what I've been saying to you guys afterwards. It's only when you come to these places that you learn stuff that you could never read in book. I've read Mike Collins' book, User Stories Applied. I've scribbled it out. I've done it. Excellent book. And one of the mistakes that I've been making up until now, and I can put my hand up, and I'm sure many of the people out there as well have been doing, is when writing those user stories is actually writing acceptance criteria directly with the user story and then having a conversation afterwards. Whereas what I've been picking up from this weekend is actually, well, no, that's not it. You catch it, you write that user story, placeholder, have that conversation. From that conversation, you have an agreement on what the acceptance criteria is. So I'm going to be changing the way that I'm going to be doing stuff.
A good thing to do is, it's okay to work out what's in your head, write things down. But and you could write down acceptance criteria, but never hand off. One of the things that worked for me when I was coaching teams is let anybody write down, work through what you want, work through everything you've got, but keep it to yourself. Show up, have that conversation, and say, here's what I'm thinking. So the little bit of slides I showed today, I showed that you come in with one idea, you describe to somebody else, they form a slightly different idea, and through conversation you arrive at something that was different. Work out those acceptance criteria. If they're too fully formed, makes it harder for you to change your mind.
Of course.
And that's all.
Yeah, I guess that's where the challenge is, where the correction needs to come, which is writing them too fully out beforehand is not necessarily the best way to go about it. And like you said, handing it over and saying, okay, this is it, that's definitely not the way. So there's learning there for myself, and I'm sure there's learning there for you too. So how can people get hold of you? How can people get access to your website? How can people contact you? I know you've got a book coming out soon, so
I'm easy to find on the web, just under Jeff Patton. You'll find my website is agileproductdesign.com. It's so super, I'm in the process of trying to get myself back updated. There's a lot of content that's on there that's been there a while, and hopefully I'll be back up to speed and starting to blog again a little bit more for full blast. But I've been fairly busy, and I've been trying to write, and with luck, a book on story mapping published via O'Reilly should be out. Its draft is that close to done, and now I'm at a point of iterating it or reworking it, and it should be out as an ebook before the end of the year and as a paper book later.
Soon it'll be done.
Or done is it?
I doubt it'll be done. I think it'll be done.
Yeah.
All right,
hopefully, what is it? There's an old Da Vinci quote that great art is never finished, it's merely abandoned. I'll abandon it soon enough.
And then we'll see a revised edition because it's iterative, right?
That's correct. That's what second editions are for. Second books are for.
It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate everything that you've done.
A high point for me was meeting you. So good to meet you too. So I didn't know who you were until we met here at the conference.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. All the best. I'll be following your work.